June 14th, 1992. Midnight, 12,000 feet up Mount Foraker, Alaska. A climber wakes dangling from a rope over a black void, wind tearing at his face. He can't turn his head. 2 vertebrae are shattered. Beside him hangs his partner, no breath. 50 feet below, his best friend lies crumpled on a ledge. 3 elite mountaineers came up this route. Now only one remains conscious, hanging from a snagged rope with a broken neck. No one knows they're here. No rescue is coming. The nearest humans are 5 miles away, across a glacier riddled with hidden crevasses that swallow climbers whole. He's going to climb down a mountain that just killed everyone he loves. For the next 6 days, he descended 5,000 vertical feet, with 2 fractured vertebrae, a shattered ankle, and a broken shoulder. No food, no rescue, no margin for error. How did a man with a broken neck survive what should have killed him 3 times over? And what did he see on that mountain that changed everything he believed about survival? June 1992. Day 4. Colby Coombs, Rit Kellogg, and Tom Walter stand at 17,400 feet on Mount Foraker's southeast ridge. 3 rope lengths from completing the Pink Panther, a direct summit finish no team has ever made. Colby, 25, teaches wilderness survival for the National Outdoor Leadership School. Rit, 28, has climbed beside him since they shared a college dorm room. Tom, 34, just returned from summiting 3 8,000-meter peaks in Pakistan. Rit digs a frozen Snickers from his pack, snaps it in thirds with his ice tool. They pass the pieces around. Tom checks his altimeter, 17,380 feet. Close enough. He grins through cracked lips and wind-chapped cheeks. The technical cruxes are behind them. What remains is straightforward. Descend the southeast ridge to base camp, 5 miles down the Kahiltna Glacier. Colby coils rope. The weather turns before he finishes the first loop. They embrace on the ridge, trading exhausted high fives in the thin air. The hardest work is behind them. All that remains is the descent via the southeast ridge, down to base camp where hot food and warm sleeping bags wait. But what none of them knows yet is that Mount Foraker isn't finished with them. The next 18 hours will reveal whether their skills can outmatch one of the most violent acts of nature in mountaineering. And of the 3 men standing on this ridge right now, only one will ever leave this mountain alive. Which one survives isn't determined by strength or experience. It comes down to something far stranger. The weather turns within the hour. What was clear and calm shifts to ominous gray. A storm rolls in fast, visibility plummeting. Wind howls over the ridge. The air grows thick with blowing snow until the 3 men can barely see their own boots. By 13,200 feet, they're in a full whiteout. Snow blasts sideways. The mountain is disappearing beneath their feet. They proceed single file down a 50-degree snow slope, all 3 roped together with about 50 feet between each of them. In good conditions, they'd set anchors, ice screws, snow pickets, gear to catch a fall. But the snow is too soft, the ice too brittle. Every piece of protection Colby tries to place rips out with a flick of the rope. So they make a fateful choice. Keep moving unanchored, trusting one another and their skills. Staying put is a ticket to hypothermia. They have no other option. Colby is in the middle of the rope, Tom above, Rit below. He watches the line leading up into the gray void where Tom breaks trail. Each step is tense. Crampons bite into snow. The rope between them vibrates in the gale. Then, without warning, the rope jerks violently and goes slack. 1 second Tom's weight is there, the next it's gone. Colby looks up into a wall of white hurtling toward him. A massive slab of wind-packed snow peels off the mountain and slams into the team from above. An avalanche strikes them down. Colby is knocked off his feet instantly. All 3 men, still tethered together, are swept down in a roaring landslide of snow and ice. Colby's world becomes tumbling chaos. He's flipping end over end, arms flailing for anything to arrest his fall. His ice axe catches on rock for one desperate instant, but the force of the slide rips it from his hands, the leash torn from his wrist. He's falling, 100 feet, 200, 500. The avalanche funnels them down a steep couloir, gaining speed. Colby slams into something hard, and his vision explodes in stars. He's airborne. Another impact lights up his spine with pain, then darkness. His last coherent thought before the void swallows him. Is this how it ends? Colby wakes to find himself somehow perched on a tiny ledge around 12,300 feet, roughly 800 feet below where the avalanche struck. The rope connecting him to his partners has snagged on something above, which is the only reason he isn't at the bottom of the mountain or dead. His backpack is gone, one mitten is gone, and his helmet is cracked down the middle, though it did its job by not cracking his skull. Now the inventory of damage. Left ankle shattered and swelling inside his boot, left shoulder likely broken, neck in searing pain and nearly immobile. He can wiggle his toes, so he isn't paralyzed yet. But 2 of his cervical vertebrae are fractured. Any wrong twist could sever his spinal cord. Moving could kill him. Staying still definitely would. What makes a group of elite, experienced climbers decide to keep moving when every rule of survival says they shouldn't? Morning light creeps over the slope. The storm has passed, leaving an eerie, biting calm. Colby's mind races through the grim calculus. He's high on a remote mountain, grievously injured, exposed to elements that will kill him within days. No one knows exactly where they are. Even if by some miracle a rescue team knew his location, they couldn't reach him in time. If he stays put, he freezes. Colby forces himself into action. With numb, fumbling fingers, he tightens the knots anchoring him to the ledge. He refuses to remove his boots, knowing they're the only thing holding his ruined ankle together. If he unlaces them, his foot might literally come apart. He turns to his partners. Tom's body still hangs in the rope above. Colby pulls his friend onto the ledge and checks for a pulse anyway. Nothing. Tom's eyes are half open, glazed with ice. Colby closes them and mutters a shaky goodbye. A strange numbness falls over him. Grieve later. Survive now. Now, for Rit. The rope trails off the ledge and down a near vertical section of the face. It's slack, with no tension from below. Colby's stomach lurches. He has to know. Gritting his teeth, he rigs his remaining rope and rappels down, inch by agonizing inch. 30 feet below, he finds Rit Kellogg tangled in the rope on a narrow ice shelf, body limp and battered, partially buried in snow. Something breaks inside Colby, but he won't let it show. He can't afford to. He says aloud, hoarsely, "I'm sorry, Rit." Then, in a final act of respect, he uses an emergency tarp to wrap his friend's body as best he can. Climbing back up to the ledge is pure torture, a slow-motion scramble with one functional arm and a failing leg. At the top, Colby collapses next to Tom's body, panting, every nerve screaming. In minutes, he was alone. He allows himself one short, strangled scream of anguish. It echoes off the ice walls and dies, swallowed by the indifferent void. That's all the breakdown he'll permit. When the echo fades, Colby goes cold and clear. If he dies here, no one will ever know what happened. Tom and Rit's story will end on this ledge, a mystery entombed in ice. That thought is intolerable. If he's alive, their story lives on. Colby makes his decision. He's going to rescue himself. He's going to climb down this mountain or die trying. But he's not going to sit and wait to die. By the time he's ready to leave, it's approaching dusk. Colby gazes down at the expanse of the southeast ridge below. That's the only way off. The avalanche swept them down a side face, and climbing back up is impossible. His only escape is to continue down, via a route he's never set foot on. Somewhere at the base of that ridge, miles away, is the Kahiltna Glacier and base camp where small planes land. If he can reach that, he might find people. If you've been finding value in this story, hitting subscribe helps the channel keep bringing you stories like this one. It's free, takes 1 second, and means more than you know. The very first move nearly sends him into unconsciousness. Weight goes onto his left leg and a blast of pain erupts from his ankle, straight to the base of his skull. He cries out, a guttural sound, and almost loses his balance. Stars dance in his vision. Colby presses his forehead to the icy slope, panting. "This is impossible," a voice in his head whispers. "No one could do this." But another voice, fiercer, growls back. "I don't care if my foot falls off." He mutters it aloud. "I don't care if my foot falls off. I'm going." He shoves himself upright and takes another step. Agony again, but he stays standing. Another step. And another. Each one hurts more than the last, but each one brings him down. Colby climbs with a broken neck, refusing to stop. But here's what he doesn't know yet. The hardest part isn't the pain. It's what's waiting for him at the bottom of this ridge. 5 miles of glacier riddled with hidden crevasses that he'll have to cross completely alone. One wrong step into a snow bridge and he dies in an icy pit, mere miles from salvation. And right now, Colby doesn't even know those crevasses exist. When every option leads to death, how do you choose the one that gives you even the smallest chance to live? The descent becomes a waking nightmare. Colby moves in a grotesque half-climb, half-limp down the upper southeast ridge. He can't look down at his feet because tilting his head even a few degrees sends white-hot needles through his neck. So he feels his way, placing each crampon step and ice axe placement by muscle memory. The descent becomes navigation by nerve endings. Colby can't tilt his head without vertebrae grinding, so he climbs blind, feeling each crampon placement through boot leather, guessing ice axe angles by shoulder extension. The southeast ridge is unmapped territory for him. Twice he descends 100 vertical feet only to reach cliffs that drop into nothing. Both times he climbs back up, regaining elevation that cost an hour of white-hot agony. On day 3 or 4, he stopped counting his right crampon snags on rock mid-step. The binding tears. Metal dangles from one remaining strap. Colby wedges into a crack between ice and stone, staring at the broken gear. Without it, the next ice traverse is impossible. His hands shake so violently he can barely grip the rope. He unknots a section of climbing cord, threads it through the broken binding, lashes the crampon to his boot in a figure-8 tourniquet, tests weight. The metal shifts but holds, barely. He keeps moving. That night he jams himself into a bergschrund where glacier ice tears away from rock and tries to sleep. Cold jolts him awake every 20 minutes. Around 2 a.m., Ritt's voice cuts through the wind. "You're doing good, Colby. Keep going." Colby jerks upright. Neck screams. He scans the darkness. No one's there. Just wind scraping over ice. He answers anyway. Tells Ritt about the crampon fix. Describes the Serac field he crossed without falling. Ritt responds in Colby's own voice, which he knows means something inside him is breaking, but the conversations keep the cold at bay. Tom joins in on day 4. They debate routes, argue about whether to rest or push through. Colby laughs at their advice, realizes he's talking to himself and doesn't care. On day 5, his right crampon, the lashed one, finally gives out completely. The figure-8 knot unravels. Metal clatters down the slope and vanishes. Colby stares at his boot, then at the ice ahead. 200 feet of 40-degree slope to reach rock again. He kicks steps with his broken ankle, each impact a detonation of pain, and front points with his left crampon alone. It takes 3 hours to cover 200 feet. When he reaches rock, he collapses and vomits nothing but bile. On what he guesses is day 4, he's traversing a broad snow slope when the mountain nearly finishes what it started. A deep whoomp reverberates beneath his boots. The snow settles abruptly. His avalanche-trained brain fires a warning. Unstable snowpack. Colby freezes. He angles his eyes downward and sees a crack propagating in the snow a few yards below. The entire slab could break loose at any second. In slow motion, he shifts his weight uphill. Each step, he eases his boot down as lightly as a feather, retracing his path exactly. The slope groans as he departs, but it holds. After an agonizing climb back up, Colby reaches safer ground. The mountain tried once more to bury him. Once more, he slipped away. By now, Colby is little more than a walking corpse. His movements are zombie-like, stiff and automatic. When he isn't climbing, he's staggering. When he isn't staggering, he's crawling. His body has been running on empty for days, consuming itself for fuel. But finally, the steepness beneath his feet begins to relent. The crags give way to gentler slopes. He realizes with a jolt of disbelief, he's reached the foot of Mount Foraker. In front of him stretches the vast white expanse of the Kahiltna Glacier, an ocean of ice sprawling to the horizon. Relief and dread wash over him in equal measure. He's off the mountain, but between him and safety lies 5 miles of open glacier, riddled with crevasses. He can see a tiny cluster of dots. What should be base camp? It looks tantalizingly close, but 5 miles might as well be 50 when you're alone and broken. The Kahiltna is a graveyard masquerading as a gentle snowfield. Crevasses hide under thin snow bridges waiting to swallow the unwary. Normally, you travel roped in teams. Colby is one man with one shredded rope. If he goes into a crevasse, no self-rescue is possible. What makes crevasses lethal? As glaciers flow downhill, the ice cracks under stress. These cracks can extend hundreds of feet deep. Fall into one alone, and you have minutes before hypothermia sets in. Assuming the fall itself doesn't kill you, he doesn't have a choice. The only way out is through. By day 6, Colby moves like animated wreckage. When he isn't climbing, he's crawling. When he isn't crawling, he's lying still, convincing his body to try again. But the angle beneath his boots finally eases. Crags surrender to snow. Steep gives way to gradual. He lifts his eyes, a mistake that punishes his neck, and sees the ridge flatten into the Kahiltna Glacier. 5 miles of white expanse stretch to the horizon. At the far edge, colored dots. Base camp. 3 things crystallize at once. He's off the mountain. He's not safe. And crossing that glacier alone will be worse than everything behind him. What happens when your mind breaks but your body keeps moving? And how do you cross 5 miles of hidden crevasses when one misstep erases everything you've survived? Colby shuffles forward across the Kahiltna, utterly alone in a frozen expanse, 5 miles between him and base camp. The glacier hides lethal crevasses. One misstep could kill him. Statistically, crossing this glacier alone in his condition is suicide. He knows this, and yet, what else can he do? He adopts a rhythm. Tap step, tap step. Using his ice axe like a blind man's cane, he probes the snow ahead before each footfall. If the axe strikes hollow, he reroutes. The silence is profound. After days of roaring wind, the glacier's calm feels alien. Colby can hear his own heartbeat. Occasionally, the snow makes a muted crump under his weight, a sound that sends his pulse racing. Step by step, Colby inches forward, fighting the urge to rush. He keeps his discipline. Every few yards, he prods suspicious depressions and detours around them. Several times, he navigates winding paths to avoid areas that sound hollow. Pain has become his constant companion. At some point, Colby realizes the shapes on the horizon are growing larger. Rectangles, domes, tents. He blinks, thinking his vision is tricking him, but it's real. Orange, blue, and green fabric. The Kahiltna base camp. A swell of emotion wells up in his chest. Base camp means people. It means life. He tries to quicken his pace, but a jolt of pain checks him. Steady. Can't blow it now. He forces himself to continue the slow shuffle. Tap. Step. Closer. Around 5 in the morning, Colby Coombs reaches the outskirts of base camp. The sky is early morning gray. Most climbers are still asleep. He staggers past a small sign stuck in the snow, barely registering it. After days in the wilderness alone, the detritus of human habitation is jarring. Ski tracks, candy bar wrappers, a snow shovel propped in a drift. Colby has never been so happy to see litter. At the heart of camp is a large tent where the base camp manager holds court. Right now, it's zipped up and silent. Colby stands there for a moment, a battered specter. No one has noticed him. In the dim dawn light, he's just another climber shuffling about. He could shout. He could collapse and yell for help. But Colby does none of those things. In a characteristically polite decision, he lets them sleep. He spots an empty green expedition tent with its flap partly open. He limps over, pushes inside, and practically falls onto the floor. It's mercifully out of the wind. Colby eases himself down and lies flat for the first time in 6 days. A shock of pain bolts through his neck, but he doesn't care. He pulls a corner of a sleeping bag over himself and just shivers, teeth chattering as his body begins to comprehend it might actually be safe. Around 6 in the morning, the base camp manager, Annie Duquette, unzips the tent and practically trips over a half-frozen Colby curled up inside. She gasps. People aren't supposed to just appear at base camp out of the blue, certainly not in this state. Colby's clothing is shredded, his face sunburned and wind-blasted, lips cracked and bleeding. Annie's eyes go wide. Within minutes, she has the camp medic and several climbers crowded around. They gently help Colby out of the tent. He winces, stiff and hunched, unable to turn his head. People are asking questions, horrified and amazed that he walked in alone. Annie radios for immediate evacuation. Colby is safe at last. The climb is over, but as relief washes through him, it carries something else. The immense weight of being the one who lived. Would you risk 5 miles of hidden crevasses alone, knowing one wrong step would erase everything you've survived so far? It takes a helicopter evacuation and a team of shocked doctors to grasp what Colby has survived. X-rays reveal multiple spinal fractures, a shattered ankle, and injuries that should have killed him in the field. A single one of those injuries in the field is life-threatening. Colby had all of them and managed to descend a mountain. When word spreads that one climber survived a lethal avalanche on Foraker and then essentially crawled back to base camp, most people are incredulous. Colby spends 3 months in a rigid neck brace and wheelchair while his spine heals, then another 3 months on crutches, reteaching himself to walk. He attacks recovery with the same determination that got him off Foraker. While his body heals, the emotional wounds remain raw. Tom and Rit did not come home. Search teams found signs of the fallen climbers, a jacket here, a piece of rope there, but never the men themselves. The mountain claimed them. One discovery stands out. A pilot spots Tom's ice axe planted upright in the snow, about 100 feet from the top of the ridge, a literal stone's throw from safety. The realization of how close they were is a dagger to the heart. In the quiet nights at the hospital, Colby grapples with survivor's guilt. Why me? He'll never fully answer that question. What he decides is that he must make his life worth the price they paid. In the hospital, when the morphine wears off and the room goes dark, Colby hears Rit's voice. "You're doing good. Keep going." Except now he knows Rit's gone. The conversations that kept him alive on the mountain have become hauntings. He lies awake asking the ceiling, why me? Why not Tom, who had a wife and 2 kids? Why not Rit, who was planning to propose that summer? The question has no answer. So Colby stops asking it and asks a different one instead. What do I do with this? Talkeetna, Alaska, June 1996. 4 years after the accident. Colby stands in front of 12 students at the first session of Alaska Mountaineering School, a program he and his wife built from nothing. The students are young, eager, outfitted in brand new Gore-Tex. One raises a hand. Have you ever been in a real survival situation? The room goes silent. Colby's jaw tightens. He could deflect, could say a few close calls and move on. But these people are trusting him to teach them how to come home alive. They deserve the truth. I had 2 friends who didn't make it off a mountain, he says. Everything I'm teaching you, how to read weather, set protection, recognize unstable snow, exists so you can be the one who does. He doesn't tell them about the broken neck or the hallucinations or the crampon that failed at 15,000 feet. Doesn't mention that for 6 days he heard dead men talking, and it was the only thing keeping him sane. What he teaches them is simpler. Survival isn't about being the strongest or the most experienced. It's about taking one more step when your brain is screaming that you can't. It's about making the next good decision when bad luck has already landed. Tom and Rit died 100 feet from the top of the ridge, close enough to safety that a search pilot later found Tom's ice axe planted upright in the snow like a gravestone. Colby carries that proximity with him. 100 feet between 3 men on a rope and 1 man walking into base camp alone. 100 feet and a series of choices no one should have to make. The Alaska Mountaineering School has trained over 15,000 climbers since 1996. Hundreds have submitted Denali. Dozens have stood on Everest. Some have returned from expeditions with stories of close calls, storms that rolled in fast, avalanches that missed them by minutes. They credit the training. Colby credits Tom and Rit. He's 60 now. He still teaches, still takes students up the Kahiltna Glacier to practice crevasse rescue. Sometimes on quiet rope team approaches, he hears Rit's voice in his head. "You're doing good, Colby." He doesn't fight it anymore. The conversations aren't haunting, they're reminders. 3 men went up Mount Foraker in June 1992. 1 came down. That man spent the next 3 decades making sure their deaths meant something, that every climber who learns to read a cornice or set a dead man anchor carries a piece of what Tom and Rit taught him. Survival costs more than pain. It costs the rest of your life. And if you're lucky enough to have one you weren't supposed to keep, you spend it honoring the ones who didn't. For a survival story that pushes human limits even further, watch the story of Douglas Mawson, the man whose feet literally came apart in Antarctica, who dragged himself 100 miles through a frozen wasteland and somehow made it home to lead expeditions again.